Hey everyone, AMR back in with another tier list. So in today's video, I'm actually going to be tackling some of the best wide receivers in last year's NFL season. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. As always, if you like the content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. I do kind of a lot of these on the channel, so this isn't going to be anything that's unfamiliar to a lot of people. But we have these categories here where we have elite, top 10, wide receiver 1, good starter, average, serviceable, below average, and dog water. I actually deleted one that said like borderline top 10. I just think that kind of encompasses like what a wide receiver 1 is in most cases. But as always, go ahead and leave your comments down below. Let me know what I mess up on and let me know what you totally agree on. So first up here, we have Davante Adams. It's really hard to try and make an argument that Davante Adams is not the best wide receiver. Like, he's top 2 and he ain't 2. And you know what I mean? Like, Davante Adams, I'm a Bears fan. So if a Bears fan can go ahead and give credit to Davante Adams, that should tell you how good this guy is. Because as a Bears fan, I hate everything about the Packers. It's no secret on the channel that I hate Green Bay. So with that being considered, I think that Davante Adams is a stellar wide receiver. I'm super excited to see what he's going to do in Las Vegas now. I think that a lot of his success has been attributed to having a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers being able to throw him the ball. So it will be kind of interesting to see how he adjusts with Derek Carr. Derek Carr, to be honest, Derek Carr is not the worst quarterback in the league, but he also has a lot of mouths to feed. He's going to have Hunter Renfrow, he's going to have Darren Waller, and now he's going to have Davante Adams and Josh Jacobs in the backfield. Let's not forget about him. So that team is really shaping up to be a really, really strong contender for next year. Their defense looks great. That's enough. That's like a story for another day. But Davante Adams, obviously a top 2, and he ain't 2. Next up, we have John Brown. John Brown is tough, man. I think that he's a good starter. He's definitely not a wide receiver 1. He's better than average, though. He's struggled the last couple of years with being injured quite a bit. So that really does suck. You can't read too much into it. He had a pretty stellar year with Buffalo, I think 2 years ago, where he actually played really, really well, had a little bit of a calf injury here and there, but ultimately was serving as a starter behind Stefon Diggs. So I think that he just fits the mold for this entire category. He's definitely not average, and he's definitely not wide receiver 1. I think that he's just a solid starter. Next up here, you have Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk is really, really tough because you see him have games where you're like, damn, he's like a top 10 wide receiver. And then you see him have games where he's pretty average. In my personal opinion, he's a good starter. Reason being is, you have Deebo Samuel on that team. You know that Deebo is for sure going to be the wide receiver 1 on that team. There's like no ifs, ands, or buts around that. And there's a lot of games where Brandon Ayuk really doesn't do much for the 49ers. So I think that he has elite speed. He has elite hands, but Jimmy G is just not utilizing him. And that's all I really can go off of right now. He hasn't played with another team so far. He's kind of living behind the shadow of the rather large shadow that Deebo Samuel is casting on him. So for that reason alone, I think that he's a good starter. Haven't seen wide receiver 1 numbers out of him yet. But yeah. Next up, you have AJ Brown. So AJ Brown, in my opinion, is a top 10 wide receiver. I don't necessarily think that he's elite. He gets injured far too much. You know, he's got that household last name of Brown. He's related to Antonio Brown and Hollywood Brown. So that core of wide receiving is in the bloodline. He's a very good wide receiver. He's tall, he's lanky. He kind of reminds me of what AJ Green used to be like, except for the fact that he has Ryan Tannehill throwing him the football. Ryan Tannehill is a wide receiver from Texas A&M who converted into a quarterback. So he's not really going to have those electric 350-yard passing games very often. I think he mostly hovers right around 200, and then he gives it to the Yeti in the backfield of Derrick Henry. So you haven't seen A.J. Brown deliver too much, and he struggled with injuries a lot last season. Solid hands, good wide receiver. When he was on the field, I think he was averaging over 10 receptions a game, not just targets, but receptions. Had a couple explosive games, and I think that he is one step away from being that elite factor. Next up, you have Antonio Brown. So I think that the only way that I can do this quiz justice is if I take into account the here and now of these players, or I should say just last season in general, everything up until last season. So with that in mind, I'm judging like the 2021-2022 season of these players. Antonio Brown has had an amazing career in the NFL, but these last couple 3 years have been not so great to him. He is really shedding a lot of light into what's going on upstairs. And so I think that Antonio Brown has the ability to be a good starter right now, but I think that he's actually below average right now. He is struggling to stay in the field. He can't find a team right now. I think that he is a cancer in the locker room. And, you know, he just straight up left in the middle of a game. And the fact that Tom Brady has stuck his neck out twice for this guy, and both times he has turned it into some type of a him against the world type of thing. I don't know. I think that Antonio Brown at one point was elite, but his gameplay has not been backing up his personality lately. So I think for that reason alone, you can't even put him as serviceable. I think that he's going to cause more problems for your team on the field. It's better just to like abandon ship right now. Next up, you have Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson's really, really tough. I'm going to put him in dog water. So as a Bears fan, I'm going to have a huge say in what goes on right now. So Allen Robinson, I think, is a very good wide receiver. I think that he is tremendous. My biggest problem is when a player doesn't believe in the coaching system, and then that starts to translate in his gameplay on the field. There was a lot of times this season where he was going at 50, 40, 30% on the field. Unacceptable. You're still getting paid millions of dollars to do a job that people do at recess. Get over yourself and understand that if you want to get out of Chicago, which he inevitably did, he needs to figure out that get out of your own head, dude. Like, I get it. The Bears don't have a great track record with drafting quarterbacks, getting good quarterbacks, like having a pass-heavy offense. We just don't do that in Chicago. And Allen Robinson, I think, showed his true colors on the field by like not really giving 110% every single play. And I think that caused a lot of people to lose faith in Justin Fields because he wasn't able to deliver the football to Allen Robinson. When in reality, it's like Justin Fields could probably come back and say, look, that guy's not even on the field mentally half the game, if not more. So for that reason alone, I'm going to put him at dog water. I feel like if he ends up on a losing team, he's for sure just going to give up. He's not going to be an X factor. I think that he has the athleticism to change a team and be one of the better guys in the NFL. But mentality is a big part of the NFL. If you're not there 110% mind, body, and soul, then you might as well just pick a different sport because the NFL will chew you up and spit you out faster than it drafted you. Next up, you got Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley, I honestly think Cole Beasley is a good starter. I think he's better than average. Most of the time that you see like wide receivers, you know, they have like a very long, lanky type stature. And it's like a short guy in the NFL like him. I mean, you have to have solid hands. You have to be so good at route running. You have to be just balls to the wall 110%. And, you know, Cole Beasley was electric in Dallas. He's moved over to Buffalo and he's, you know, figured out how to manage that system. I think he's a free agent right now, which is kind of sad because I think he's still got a little bit of juice left. And he's definitely one to like put his heart and soul on the line for his team. He is a very big team player. And I think like guys like that need to be in the NFL until they ultimately decide like, hey, I just don't have it anymore, or it starts to translate in the field. I don't see that. Cole Beasley has been stellar for his team. So I think that he deserves to be a good starter. It is what it is. Take what you want. Go ahead and take shots at me. I'm happy to be your target. So I've been looking over here on the side and I can't figure out who this guy is. I wish that they would go ahead and include some people's names with some of their pictures. He has a very recognizable face. I just cannot make the connection in my head right now for the life of me. But let's go ahead and put him in dog water for now because I just don't know who he is. But that is no indication as to what I actually think about the player. I think it's worth calling out. Next up, we have Tyler Boyd. So Tyler Boyd is super tough I think that he is above average. I think he's another good starter, man. I think that he is playing a very, very important role on the Cincinnati Bengals between Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, both of which are probably wide receiver 1, top 10, if not elite. So I think that it's going to be really hard in comparison. But I mean, you think about what he did last season, 10 targets. He's averaging probably right around 8 to 10 targets a game. And this season with the double-headed monsters on the outside, him working out of the slot, he was still getting like 6 to 10 targets a game. That says a lot about a person. So I think that Tyler Boyd is definitely going to be a good starter. And I think that when you throw him the ball, he definitely tends to catch it more than he drops. So for that reason alone, he just deserves to be a good starter. Next up, you have Brandin Cooks. I think Brandin Cooks is definitely a wide receiver 1, obviously. I mean, he is a wide receiver 1 for his team. He's been around the NFL for a minute. He's played with the Rams. He's played with New Orleans. I think he went back to the Rams, and then he has played now with the Texans. Like, he has been around the league quite a bit, and I feel like Brandin Cooks still has like that crazy speed. He had a couple of games this season where he put on the burners, and you really saw that, damn, this guy's been in the NFL for a while, but he has not lost a step yet. I think that says a lot about his character, what he's willing to bring to the team. And, he made the most out of being a star wide receiver on a losing team this season. So future is, remains to be bright for him. He's had a solid career so far. I think that if he continues to develop as the wide receiver on the path that he's on, I think that he can continue to be that wide receiver 1 for his team. Next up, you have DJ Chark. So DJ Chark, I think he's going to be a wide receiver 1. So he's spent most of the time this year being injured. The other 2 wide receivers on his team are Marvin Jones Jr. and Laviska Shenault. I just don't really see either one of those taking over on him. DJ Chark is a lanky guy. He has very good hands. Did get injured, so you can't read too much into that. But when he was on the field, he was pretty lights out. And I think that getting him back will make this Jaguars team all the more scary. So I think the future is bright for him. Again, he's a pretty young guy. I think he's like in his 3rd or 4th season. So I think that he deserves to be a wide receiver 1. Next up, Chase Claypool. So hear me out on this one. I'm going to put Chase Claypool at average. So I think that we can all agree the dude has pretty exceptional athleticism. But you know what play I'm referring to when I talk about where he decided to showboat in a time when the game was on the line. That, to me, it doesn't matter if you're Davante Adams. It doesn't matter if you're Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce or whoever. If you're going to decide to showboat and have no recollection about the fact that the game's winding down, we need to be in a hurry-up offense, you're wasting time, get the ball set. Like, if that's not registering in your head, you're 100% playing for you and a paycheck. That's it. Not a win, not a loss, nothing else is going through your mind. It's kind of crazy to me. So outside of athleticism, I think that he is a very average player. I think that a lot of players try to showboat, and I think that that is where he belongs right now. Athletically, I think that he is a top 10 wide receiver, but I just think that he is going to continue to hold himself back. Oh, man. What a weird picture to choose. You got Randall Cobb. So Randall Cobb right now is going to be put in below average. That being said, when he was at his prime of his career, he was so dangerous. He was so dangerous with Aaron Rodgers. And then last season, he actually had, I think, one game where he had multi-touchdowns. I think it was like 2 touchdowns early on in the season. And let's just say what it is. Like, he's an old guy finishing out his career with his buddy. That's pretty much what's happening. He didn't really do anything when he went to Dallas. And then now he's even back with the Packers again. So I don't know if he's re-signed or not, but he's definitely not the same Randall Cobb that we were used to seeing in years past. So he's definitely going to be a below average. He's getting older. I just don't think he's got the juice anymore. Next up, you have Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is also going to be a tough one for me. I think Amari Cooper is a wide receiver 1. So Amari Cooper kind of has like that resting pouty face, if you will. He is so damn good as a player, but he kind of always has like this look like, they don't throw me the ball enough. I'm like, bitch, you get like 10 plus targets a game. It's your own fault, if anything. Like, what else could a guy do? You're not going to fucking feed you 17 targets a game. He has really good hands. He's got great separation, good speed. I think that he showed a lot of character by, he caught COVID. He had to go through the protocol, but then he came back a little earlier than what he probably should have. And he fought through that. And he still had a decent game that game. I think, if anything, Dallas won the game because of him being able to play that game. It was a close game. He definitely wasn't at 100%. But like, I just think that Amari Cooper could take that step and be elite, top 10. He's again just going to be his own worst enemy. So next up here, we have Corey Davis. Pretty interesting that they chose to use a Titans picture since that he just got done playing with the Jets. I think that he's really good. He's a good starter. I don't think that he is a true wide receiver one. I think that he is, again, he's very solid. He's going to give you he's going to get you what you need. He's not going to burn past anyone. He has a bigger stature. He's got solid hands. He's not shifty enough, in my personal opinion, that sets apart like a Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase looks like he's jogging on the field and he's just separating from people. That is like an X factor. Davante Adams, yards after catch with Davante Adams, crazy. And the route running, decision making, all that stuff sets you apart. And I just don't think that Corey Davis has that. I don't mean to rip on him or anything like that. It's just what it is. Next up, we have Jameison Crowder. I think it's a very similar thing, maybe a little less. He was actually okay when he played for Washington, and then he got traded over to the Jets. I think a lot of it has dealt with just the pure fact that he hasn't really had a quarterback his entire career to get him the football. I think that he's shown situations where he can be a very, very good quarterback. All things being considered, though, I just think that he's reached a limit there, So again, another interesting jersey choice. This tier list had to be made before the season because there's a lot of guys in their old uniforms. So we have Curtis Samuel here. Curtis Samuel, I think, is average. So I think that Curtis Samuel, when he's able to get on the field, is actually pretty electric. He's very fun to watch. I just think that this dude got really unlucky. I mean, there are certain positions where one or another specific injury can be a killer. If it's a running back, it's usually your ACL or your MCL or your PCL. If you're a wide receiver, it's your groin or your hamstring. If you are a quarterback, it's your rotator cuff or your vertebrae. Vertebrae. You can make the argument for any position there. But you get what I'm saying. Like, there's just certain positions where certain injuries impact people more. And hamstring and groin have been the kryptonite for Curtis Samuel his career. I think that if he can figure out how to not get injured so fast, or just play in a certain way that will not make him get injured as much, I think that he could really take a step to be a wide receiver one, or at the very, very top of a good starter. It's just, you don't see enough of him on the field to make a solid assessment on him. Next up, Deebo Samuel. He's got to be in the elite category. He's above a top 10 for the sole purpose of, we saw him play multiple positions this past season, and he dominated. I think that he was even more effective in the backfield than he was out on the wideout position. So I just think that Deebo Samuel is one of those guys that can change a team. Right now, he's causing a lot of problems on his social media accounts. I really wish that these players have to have like a PR person manage their accounts, because my God, there's so many players that just get in trouble on social media because they're posting stupid shit. But Deebo Samuel, he is so electric, very, very fast, very shifty, smart with the football, and probably one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver this past season. Next up, you have DeAndre Hopkins. I'm thinking I'm going to put DeAndre Hopkins in top 10. I think that if you had DeAndre Hopkins of 2-3 years ago, I think that he is elite. Right now, again, dealing with an injury. He had a couple of games where it was just kind of cooled down. I think that he was serving more as a threat on the outside, and then that was freeing up a Rondale Moore, AJ Green for his team this past season. You actually saw the guys around him supporting him very well. All things being considered, though, DeAndre Hopkins, I think, has taken a step back this past season. And for that reason, he's fallen out of the elite and into the top 10 for me personally. I don't know why, but they have two pictures of DeAndre Hopkins here. I thought for a second that this might have been 85 and it could have been AJ Green. But this is pretty clearly the catch where Kyler Murray runs to the outside, almost out of bounds, throws up the Hail Mary, and DeAndre Hopkins comes down with it to upset Buffalo. So I just have to imagine that this is probably just a duplicate. If you want, I can do an AJ Green analysis. I guess I can just do that. So let's have this picture be AJ Green. AJ Green is probably a good starter. I don't think that AJ Green, again, AJ Green, not DeAndre Hopkins here, because of the duplicate. I have to keep saying duplicate. AJ Green, DeAndre Hopkins, AJ Green. So I think that AJ Green is a solid starter. He also had a lot of trouble with injuries throughout his career. He was dynamite in Cincinnati. Kind of took a really long time to get healthy again. We saw spectacular things out of him this past season with Arizona outside of one play. And that one play is defining a lot of people's perception on whether or not AJ Green belongs in the field still. It was a pretty bonehead play. He really did give up on the play. It happens. I just don't know if that happens to some of these superstar players in that type of a situation. Game on the line, really all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I think AJ Green is a solid starter. He's not a wide receiver one, and he's definitely above average. Ooh, Stefon Diggs. I'm going to put Stefon Diggs as a top 10, but not an elite. Now, you can hate me if you want on this one. I can totally embrace the hate here. I think DeAndre Hopkins, or I think that Stefon Diggs has the athleticism, the wherewithal to be an elite wide receiver. He's just got that crybaby syndrome. I live in Minnesota now, and I had to deal with the whole news about him leaving, being a big drama queen, all that stuff. You don't give him the football, blah, 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 blah. But if you haven't seen it, watch that video of him running on the treadmill. The dude is super fast, very shifty. And I think that he's got solid hands. He's definitely a top 10 wide receiver. I just don't think that he has the mental capacity to get up to that elite wherewithal. So next up, we have Dionte Johnson. I think Dionte Johnson is a top 10 wide receiver as well. This dude has been getting targets from Big Ben like crazy, and he catches a lot of them. He had a very good season this past season. I think that he could continue to be one of the league's better wide receivers. I don't necessarily think that he's elite, not quite yet anyway. And I think that he's for sure a top 10 guy. He was spectacular. I'm not going to lie. Next up, you have DJ Moore. I think DJ Moore is a wide receiver 1, but necessarily not a top 10. He did get injured a little bit. I think that he is a little small for being a, top 10, crazy kind of guy. Had a really big start of the year and then just kind of fizzled out. I think that he has solid hands. That being considered, though, he plays in a team right now that utilizes the running game a little bit more than the passing game, so that's definitely going to take a step back for him. He's pretty young still, so he could have better luck with a different team or even just getting the quarterback situation resolved. I think that would help out a lot of unknowns about him. I've had him on my fantasy team for the last 3 years, and it's been like a roller coaster ride with him. So I don't know how to feel. I'm trying to keep my emotion out of it from my fantasy perception of him. I think that he's a good player, but he's definitely not a top 10 in my personal opinion. DK Metcalf. I think DK Metcalf is a top 10 wide receiver. So you have to hear what I'm not saying, okay? Or don't hear what I'm not saying. DK Metcalf, for the majority of the games that he was playing this past season, he got the cornerback 1 on him at all times. It was shutdown corners on him every single step of the way. And he still had an okay season. He didn't have a shining star type of a season, but I think that he does a lot better this season than most guys would if they were put in that same position. I think that he is so freakishly athletic. The dude is massively tall, crazy fast. He ran in the Olympic trials. He can bench press so much. Like look at his arms. Look at the definition. Like this dude he is an outlier in terms of the athletic ability. I think that to put him outside of the top 10 would be an injustice to him. I think he just had a down year, and I think the future is super bright for him. I just don't know what's going to happen with him in Seattle now that Russ is gone. I'm a little concerned. Holy shit. How am I going to do all these, man? So next up is Julian Edelman. I'm going to put Julian Edelman down here just because he didn't play last season. I don't think it's fair to everyone else on this thing. Same thing with, what's his face? Golden Tate. So next up we have Emmanuel Sanders. I think Emmanuel Sanders is a good starter, if not average right now. He definitely had times this past season where he stepped up in a big way, but then he started to fizzle out again. It's tough. Emmanuel Sanders, I think we can actually drop into average, all things being considered. He definitely was way, way better when he played for the Broncos. Again, that was earlier on in his career. He had more juice then. I think that he's just getting a little older now, and it just comes with the territory. I don't know who this is. I'm sorry. If that's your favorite player, then you need to find a new favorite player because no one knows who the hell that is. This is Michael Gallup. I think Michael Gallup is a good starter if he can stay healthy. I think he has had a really, really tough time staying on the field. But, I mean, the dude is freakishly athletic. He just got paid through the nose, which I don't even know how he was able to structure that contract in Dallas, no less. So I think that Michael Gallup, you could see a breakout year from him this upcoming season. Or the next season. I think he actually tore his ACL in the last game of last season, so may not see him until midseason anyway, but dude is freakishly athletic, super good, and I'm very excited to see what we have in store for him. Chris Godwin. I think Chris Godwin is an elite wide receiver. The guy was unbelievable in Tampa Bay. I think that the moment that he got injured for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was the moment that a lot of people ruled Tampa out of contention for a true run in the playoffs. He is an X factor. He is, if you put these three guys in the same team, there's just no way. There's no way. You could have the worst quarterback in the NFL throwing to these guys and you'll still probably win the Super Bowl. Chris Godwin is so crazy athletic. I'm curious to see how he's going to do, like bouncing back from that really bad injury of a torn ACL. Am I crazy or is this Golden Tate as well? I'm pretty sure that this is Golden Tate too. I don't really know how to feel about it. This is Kenny Golladay. I'm going to put Kenny Golladay as average. I always kind of felt like he was an average player. He actually played at NIU, so that's where I played baseball in college, for those of you that don't know. And I don't know. I don't really think that he did anything spectacular. He had like 1 or 2 good seasons in Detroit, and then he got traded over to the Giants, and he really didn't play well this season. So I don't know how to feel about him. Next up, you have Marquise Goodwin. Oh man, I think he's serviceable because he's fast as hell, but for those of you that haven't seen the video, maybe not watch it. He kind of goes across the field and then just gets leveled. And then he does like this juking thing when he's on the ground because he's knocked out. And that's like your bodily reflexes happening. Really nasty injury. That was a couple years back, but I got to see him play a little bit on the Bears and as well when he was a 49er. He's very fast. I don't think that he's a difference maker on a team. I just have to imagine that he's a serviceable player. He probably only has maybe a year or 2 left anyway, so not going to spend too much time on him. So next up we have Mecole Hardman. I think Mecole Hardman is a solid receiver. I think that he has the speed to be a difference maker and potentially take a step up to a wide receiver 1. That being said, though, I think that he is a product of being on an offense that fits his scheme. He has electric speed, got good hands, and he's got a quarterback that can throw to him. I think that you put him on a team like Tennessee and he just kind of disappears. I think that that's just going to happen with him. I think that he's fast enough to be like a difference maker for a team, but I just don't know if you threw the ball at him 15 times that he could 100% haul in 11 of them every single game. that's the hard part with a lot of these guys. And I think for that reason alone that he's not a wide receiver one for me, but he is a very good starter. Next up, you have Hollywood Brown here. Man, it is really hard to figure out what to do with him. So I'm going to put Hollywood Brown as a good starter. So hear me out on this. I think that he's at the very top of the list. So like understand that part. I think that when Baltimore had him as the wide receiver one, for one, he dropped a ball in the end zone, which is really hard to do. I know Julio Jones has done that as a wide receiver one. It's going to happen, but he gets on himself really hard. I think that he's like trying to take a step into like being a gaming streamer, which is weird. He's very fast. He's got great hands. I just don't know if he has everything in him to be a wide receiver one at his height. He's just kind of small, shifty, fast. Solid hands, but I just don't know if he's a wide receiver one in my eyes. So I think that this is Alshon Jeffrey. I'm not even going to talk about him because he didn't play. Number 10, I think, is Tim Patrick for the Denver Broncos. I thought Tim Patrick was, right in the middle of a solid starter. I think that he had a couple of breakout games, really looked good. He's not a wide receiver one, and I think that he plays better than an average. So I think for that reason alone, he has to be right there in the middle. Next up, we have yet another picture of John Brown. So we're going to go ahead and put him down here. You have Jarvis Landry. I'm going to put Jarvis Landry as serviceable. There's nothing about the guy that really kind of stands out. You can say what you want, but like he ran in the 10s, I want to say. Yeah. In the 2010s, he ran in the top 10 slowest for wide receivers at a combine. He's not very fast. He is okay at hands. His route running is exceptional. I think he's a good route runner. But he doesn't do enough. And for that reason alone, if you're not super fast, I think that you're below the average. So you already have a step down. Your route running is good, so I think that you can get open a little bit more, but he doesn't catch 100% of the balls that's thrown to him. He's kind of a smaller guy. He doesn't have that electric factor, and we didn't really see him step up when OBJ was down. Next up, you got JuJu. JuJu, in my mind, is a very average player. He's going to play with the Chiefs, so that'll be interesting to see what he does there. But in my eyes, he's always kind of been more of a TikToker type person than what you could call a solid player. Next up, you got Julio Jones. So you have to go off of last season as well. I think that he was a solid starter for them. He has, that Julio Jones X factor. He had that crazy, ball tipped up in the air, got 2 feet in and still caught the football for the Titans. Struggled a little bit with injury, but I think that we all know the Julio Jones X factor that he can bring to the table. He's definitely not, Julio of past being an elite. I don't think he's a top 10. I don't even think he's a wide receiver one anymore, but he definitely is a good starter still. Next up, you have Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is for sure a top 10 wide receiver. I think that in his eyes, he is the best wide receiver, but in everyone else's eyes, I think that he is maybe 1 or 2 steps down from being an elite wide receiver. I think that he's a huge difference maker. He just pisses and moans a lot, damn, Kirk, throw the ball. Dude, you get a lot of targets a game. You are a very good athlete. Just take what the game gives you. Understand, dude, it blows my mind when these players are bitching and moaning about not getting the football. It's dude, you're getting paid regardless. Okay, so for one, just shut up. Second of all, Tom Brady just restructured his contract to free up $9 million in cap space so that way his team can go out and get some more players to surround him to be better. Why is it always about self-promotion instead of team progression? I don't understand it. And for that reason alone, you'll never, ever, ever be an elite wide receiver if you think like that. Keenan Allen is another tough guy. So for right now, we have 9 guys in the top 10, and I don't think that Keenan Allen fits that mold. I don't think that Keenan Allen is a top 10 wide receiver currently. I think that he gets injured a little bit. Solid hands, gets tons of targets a game, but he doesn't have that extra step that a lot of people bring. to the table. I think he's a very solid starter. I think that he is awesome. I think that he's definitely a wide receiver 1 and will continue to be, but he's just not a top 10 anymore. Next up, you got Christian Kirk. I think he's a very average player. If you fed him 10 targets, I'm sure that he would catch like 5 of them or 6 of them. He has exceptional speed. His route running is not very good, but he's a deep threat player. Saw pretty good success this last season being on the Arizona Cardinals, especially when DeAndre Hopkins went down. He kind of stepped up, which was good to see, but I think that he's a very average player. Cooper Kupp. I think that Cooper Kupp's got to be an elite, and that's going to round out our top 10/elite. Cooper Kupp, say what you want. My God, the guy was ridiculous this past season. It blows my mind. It blows my mind because Cooper Kupp's not the fastest guy in the field. He is incredibly smart with the football. He has very, very exceptional route running, and his ability to make plays happen, play in and play out, solid hands. Like, for that reason alone, he's got to be in the elite. It's not just because Matt Stafford force-fed him the football. He was doing the same thing without Matt Stafford. This guy is quarterback independent, at least in Sean McVay's system, and I think that he can continue to be that elite top 3-4 wide receiver in the NFL. Next up, you have CeeDee Lamb. I think CeeDee Lamb was a solid starter this past season. He just never had like the breakout games. There was a lot of quiet games for him, actually, way more than what we were anticipating. I was expecting big things, maybe being a wide receiver 1 for his team, but he just kind of took under that role of being in the shadow of Amari Cooper. And so I don't think that it's right to have Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb in the same category, given that one was clearly better than the other this past season. Next up, you got Larry Fitzgerald. I'm actually going to put Larry Fitzgerald in dog water because I think he was retired for last season. I think even at the end of his career, he was very average for that final year. Throughout his career, I mean, obviously, he was top 10 elite wide receiver. He was awesome for the majority of his career. He just got old. It happens. Next up, you got Allen Lazard. I think Allen Lazard is a good wide receiver / wide receiver 1. I think that he has the athleticism to be a difference maker for a team. He's like 6'4", 6'5", lanky, solid hands. He fits very well in the dynamic of the Green Bay Packers passing options. And he does whatever it takes to win. And I think that is very important, especially having Aaron Rodgers passing the football to you. Like, Aaron Rodgers is all about winning. He doesn't really care about the statistics. He does a little bit, but for the most part, it's about winning. And when guys go into his system, they have to prove their worth to him. And I think Allen Lazard has done that. So if he can do it for Aaron Rodgers, I think he can do it for me. Next up, you have Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett's tough, man. I'm going to put Tyler Lockett as a wide receiver 1 because I think that he is just one step down below a top 10 wide receiver of a DK Metcalf. They're just not on the same playing field, man. Tyler Lockett he is the guy on a basketball court who will literally run around like the entire time, just be running, never get tired. And then DK Metcalf will be like that, Andre Drummond, who will just come in and like bang on the boards really quick, get you the rebound. I just think that Tyler Lockett has everything that encompasses a wide receiver 1. They're just nothing special. Like, he is so good as a player, but I don't think that he ever, even if he trained as hard as he could ever get into that top 10 discussion. Next up, you have Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin, obviously a wide receiver 1, got concussed last season, didn't really get to see too much out of him after that. He's been a victim of being in the Washington franchise his entire career. Lights out at Ohio State. Played exceptionally well, even for being on Washington. I think that a lot of people could make the argument that he could be the potential to have a top 10 position on this list, but I think all things considered, he's just haven't seen enough. Next up, you got Mike Evans. As much as it pains me to put him as a wide receiver 1, it is what it is. He had a lot of games this past season. I think that he did end up getting that 1,000-yard mark for like, I don't know. He's got like some record for most 1,000-yard receiving yards in a, you know what I'm trying to say, okay? He's got like 1,000 yards per season, like over his career. It's like one of the most. God, it took a long time to say all that. But Mike Evans, it pains me to put him as a wide receiver 1. He is definitely not a top 10 wide receiver anymore. And he's definitely in the shadow of Chris Godwin, who's like this new wave in Tampa. It sucks because I really like Mike Evans. I just think that this past season was a step in the backwards direction, which is totally fine, honestly. The team was doing very well. They were winning. I think that it was just a dynamic shift. There's a lot of mouths to feed on that Tampa Bay Buccaneers receiving core. Chris Godwin just happened to be the beneficiary of scoring a lot of the touchdowns, which took away a lot of touchdowns from Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans still was getting like 6 or 7 targets a game. It just was a down year for him. And that's saying a lot given that I think he still got over 1,000 yards. Next up, you have Mike Williams. Mike Williams, I'm going to put as a good starter as well. You've seen some crazy athleticism come out of this guy. He's not only a deep threat, but he's also kind of like a monster on the field. He's pretty tall, very athletic. And the one downside to having Mike Williams play the way he does is that he gets hurt a lot. He is going to go balls to the wall, put his life on the line to try and make every single catch, get every single yard for his team. And with that comes putting yourself in some vulnerable positions to go ahead and get injured. He ends up getting injured quite a bit, but I think that, man, he is one of those players that could change a complete offense in the direction of a team. Next up, you got Darnell Mooney. I think Darnell Mooney is actually a wide receiver 1. We just haven't really seen it so far. You put him on Kansas City, you put him on, really Las Vegas, you would see Darnell Mooney just go straight to the moon. He is so shifty, great route runner. He's super young. He's trying to make a name for himself. He's fast. He's smart. Like, he has so many things that are going well for him that I think that if you just find a right fit for him, I think that Chicago, unfortunately, is just not the team for him. It's like wasting all this athleticism on a place where you know that he's not going to grow, which is sad. I want the best for these players. Like, obviously, I want my team to win, but I feel like Chicago is kind of like in Captain Marvel when she finds out that she's been fighting with like one hand behind her back, essentially. I think that once he's able to get that piece removed from him, he'll be able to excel vastly as a wide receiver. Next up, I think this is Perriman. I think Perriman's like serviceable. Maybe it's not. I don't really know, but I think that's where I'm going to put him. Did I just get this like completely wrong? Maybe that. Okay, so I think that this is actually Darnell Mooney, and then this is Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown's dog water. You got Michael Thomas. I think Michael Thomas this past season, by having his little issues with New Orleans and whether or not we will never really know if he was injured or not. That's the sad part. That's the sad truth of it. But Mike Thomas definitely had a little bit of things going on. I think that when he's on the field, he is a difference maker. But I think for the reasons alone this past season, he has to be considered no longer a top 10, especially with the concerns around who's going to be giving him the football in New Orleans. Next up, you got Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I think he's good. He's got he's got some pretty exceptional speed. He's known as a deep threat. I think that he fit very well in the offense of the Green Bay Packers. He's no longer with the team anymore. I don't know who he's playing with actually, but I'm excited to see what he ends up doing with his career. Very smart guy. I think that he could end up doing very, very well. All things being considered, though, it's tough. It's tough. I think that he's a good player. I just don't know how he's going to do outside of having Aaron Rodgers being able to deliver that deep ball to him. So next up here, it looks like Jacoby Meyers. Jacoby Meyers, I'm going to have to put as serviceable. Come on, bring the hate. Bring the hate. I understand. Jacoby Meyers is good. Yeah, he's good, but it took him 2 years to score his first touchdown. And he was getting targets. He was getting yards. He's getting targets. He was on a team that was like likes to score the football. He's on the Patriots. Really no excuse there. And I think that speaks volumes to a player's ability to have a nose for the end zone. Jacoby Meyers just took too long. I think that he's a serviceable option, but long-term, I don't think the team even thinks of him as a long-term option. It is what it is. OBJ is a good starter. He's definitely above average, and he's not a wide receiver 1. This past season solidified that in my eyes. You know, he is currently a free agent, I think, still. He tore his ACL in the Super Bowl. Finally got that Super Bowl. Him crying was just like the epitome of everything that he's worked for to get to that point in his career, and then he ends up getting hurt. It's totally an OBJ thing. Is what it is. Davante Parker, another solid, good starter. When he's healthy, I think that he is elite, but struggles to stay on the field. Solid hands, good route runner, pretty tall too. I think that he is a very good option on the opposite side of the football of Jalen Waddle. This looks like Zach Pascal. I'm just going to put him down here. I don't know if he plays with the Colts anymore, and if he did, he had a very unheard of season. This is Braxton Berrios, I think, so I don't know who this is. Maybe it's Aninwa. I don't know. Michael Pittman Jr. Ooh. So Michael Pittman Jr. was the wide receiver 1 for the Colts. However, I think he's more of a good starter in my personal opinion. You don't see too much coming out of him to be like, holy shit, that's like a wide receiver 1. But he would be really good on the opposite side of the football of a Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp will be the wide receiver 1. He could take over that role of the Robert Woods, and I think that team would be nuts. But him in Indianapolis, now he's going to have Matt Ryan. He could have a crazy year. We don't know, but we'll see. Percy Williams, I don't even know what the hell he's doing in here. Jalen Reagor, I think Jalen Reagor is dog water, so that one is actually going to stay. I think Jalen Reagor has been a complete draft bust. He has not done shit for the Philadelphia Eagles. If anything, he has been more detrimental to their offense just because they feel like they have an obligation to play this guy. Just get rid of him. Get rid of him. It's a draft bust. It is what it is. You got Derek Carr. Is that Derek Carr or is that Hunter Renfrow? All right. We're going to say this is Hunter Renfrow, but I'm 1,000% positive that this is Derek Carr. Hunter Renfrow is a wide receiver 1. Is he though? It pains me to say it, but dude, Hunter Renfrow he's pretty damn good. He's the guy where you go to like the YMCA or like some local basketball like place, and then you just see this guy who looks like he got dressed before he just rolled out of bed, got dressed and went to the gym, and you're like, who the fuck is this guy? And he's just nuts. Like Hunter Renfrow is amazing at route running. He's got really good speed, fantastic hands, will do anything to win. He's just been like the underdog, overlooked his entire career kind of thing. And when Darren Waller went down, like Hunter Renfrow went like through the roof. This guy is a difference maker on a team. I think he deserves to be a wide receiver 1, especially for his efforts this past season. Next up, 81 for the Browns. I think it's Callaway. I don't really know who that is. Next up, we have Calvin Ridley. I think Calvin Ridley is definitely a wide receiver 1. He is electric when he plays. However, we know that he is currently in a retirement phase right now. Don't really know what he's going to do long term with his career, but I think that when he's on the field, there's no question that he's a wide receiver 1. He has everything it takes. Robbie Anderson, I'm going to say is very average. I feel like when he was on the Jets, he was getting a ton of targets, just wasn't doing much with them. I think that he has a couple of touchdowns in him a season, maybe 1 or 2. That's why I say a couple. But he's definitely not going to get you 1,500 yards, 1,200 yards as a wide receiver. Next up, we have an extreme close-up of number 17. I think that this is Robert Woods before he changed his number. Could be wrong, but we're going to go ahead. I think that this is Robert Woods before he changed his number to 3. I think Robert Woods is a good starter. He's had a long career. He's played very well in Buffalo. He had a pretty good season the past couple of seasons, just got hurt early on in this season. I think that he could have, made it a very lopsided Super Bowl had he been able to stay healthy. But that being said, OBJ did have a pretty good role, and what we could have seen out of Robert Woods would have been the same production in my personal opinion. Next up here, I think that this is Henry Ruggs. I'm going to put him in dog water for no other reason other than he broke the golden rule of drinking and driving, so it is what it is. Sorry to say. Don't know who this is. I'm trying to get a close-up on his jersey. Maybe Scotty Miller. If it's Scotty Miller, I'll put him as serviceable, but he's definitely not going to be in the league for very long. Next up, you have Laviska Shenault. I think he's a good starter. He just didn't really get utilized a ton in the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. They were rebuilding. I think that it's a bright future for him, all things being considered, though. Not really sure what's going to happen with him. Next up here, we have Sterling Shepard. Very similar situation. Good starter, great hands, great route runner. He's been a solid factor for the team on a team that really struggles to win games. You have his counterpart of Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton's been serviceable. I thought for a while there he was going to be a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. Crazy speed, great athleticism, but he just really didn't do much of anything this past season. I don't know if it was an injury problem. Didn't really pay attention to him too much. And the fact that I wasn't paying attention to him and I wasn't hearing his name just kind of tells me that maybe he had a down year. All things being considered, though, he has the athleticism to be a wide receiver 1. And for him to have that down of a year, I think that falls him below the average threshold. Next up, you have Willie Snead. Willie Snead's below average. Nothing to really talk about there. I think Courtlon Sutton is a wide receiver 1. Very good. He had a statement where he's like, I ran the most yards run by a receiver this year. And my dad's like, yeah, my car drove the most miles. What does that do? Like, who cares how many yards you ran as a wide receiver? How many yards did you catch the football? And if that number doesn't match, then maybe there's a problem with the quarterback, which they addressed, or maybe there's something else going on. Maybe you aren't losing the defenders as well as you thought. Next up, you have Tate. I don't think that he actually plays anymore. Could be wrong. Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen is tough, man. I think Adam Thielen is the top of the good starter. I think that he's not quite a wide receiver 1. Very good hands, crazy good route runner, do anything to win, which I love that mentality. Got hurt last season quite a lot, but I think that when he was on the field, pretty standard like business with Adam Thielen. You got exactly what you thought you were going to get from him. Next up, you got T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins is actually a wide receiver 1 in my personal opinion. Crazy to me that they don't have Jamar Chase on this list. I think that Jamar Chase would actually go up here, and we would see a DeAndre Hopkins drop down. So, yeah, that sucks, but I think that it's only doing it justice to have Jamar Chase up here and then dropping down DeAndre Hopkins down. Actually, I think Jamar Chase would go up here and then DeAndre Hopkins would just drop down. Anyway, that's enough about that. T.Y. Hilton, I'm just going to say what I'm going to say, and then you can hate me. I think that he's actually dog water right now. I think that he's playing way past his prime. The guy got hurt so many times, and they're just kind of like trying to like rehabilitate a stray dog. Like, you can do it. You can go. You can go. And he's like, I don't know if I want to go. And like, just let him go, man. Let him go. Like, get rid of him. I forgot about Tyreek Hill. So Tyreek Hill is for sure a top 10 wide receiver. Oh, man, he's elite. I think that DeAndre Hopkins has to fall out of the list now, unfortunately. And then if Jamar Chase was on this list, I think that's when you would see the DK Metcalf fall out. But he's not, so we're not going to do that. Next up, we have 16 for what looks like the Raiders. No clue. Obviously, doesn't matter. Sammy Watkins, I think, is serviceable. Gets injured a ton. He's really fast, good hands. But he just gets hurt a lot. He gets hurt a lot. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. And then last up, you have Will Fuller. Will Fuller is a solid player. Great hands, exceptional speed, good route runner. Just gets hurt a lot. So I think that that's going to do it for this episode. As you can see, we have our elite wide receivers. I'm just going to say that this is Jamar Chase right here. You have Davante Adams, Deebo Samuel, Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, and Jamar Chase. In the top 10, you have A.J. Brown, Stefon Diggs, Dionte Johnson, Justin Jefferson, and DK Metcalf. And then rounding out the dog water, rounding out the dog water portion of this, you have a bunch of people that either I don't know who they are, or they're not playing anymore, or I really think that they're dog water. So of the people that I think that are truly dog water on this section right here, you have Allen Robinson, you have Allen Robinson, Jalen Reagor, and Hunter Ruggs, as well as T.Y. Hilton. Everyone else on the list either is retired, not playing anymore, or I just have no idea who they are. But that's going to do it for this video. As always, if you like today's content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Helps me out a ton. See you.